Hello, welcome to Italics, the Italian American magazine. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburi. We're coming to you from Bryant Park this evening. We wish you all had a happy holiday season thus far. We wish you a happy new year, un felice e prospero anno nuovo. In order to help celebrate the holiday season, we have two special segments this month on Italics. First, we'll visit the Calandra Institute, where Robert Tunnell presents his graphic novel, The Feast of the Seven Fishes. It's a humorous story about a young Italian American who takes his Protestant date home to celebrate this very special Italian American holiday. Next on Italics, we'll take a look at the history and tradition of creating the family Preseppio, the nativity creche, which is a very popular activity among Italian American families. Next on Italics, we take a sneak preview of the Tuscan Gardens in the Snug Harbor Cultural Center in Staten Island, which will open up officially in the spring. Now let's go to the Calandra Institute with Robert Tunnell and his graphic novel, The Feast of the Seven Fishes.
For me, Christmas Eve 1983 was the last great feast. Sure, we've had some memorable ones since. The last several years, in fact, have been wonderful. But in 1983, a lot of the people I loved and have lost were still alive. In particular, it was the last feast for my great-grandmother, Isabella Oliverio. Just a few months later, she died of cancer. But at the time, we didn't even realize she was sick. The story of the fictional Oliverios, for all its ethnic flavor, is an American story. I really want to explore how it is we became so assimilated. It's fascinating that while many of us in the family aren't even Catholic, don't even have Italian last names, we still carry on the feast, and other traditions that have been practiced by our family for centuries. Hell, we don't even know why we do it other than tradition. Actually, that's not true. We do it for the fun and the fact it makes us feel closer to loved ones, both living and dead. Greentown was so named because the coal company got a deal on green paint and painted all the company houses green. It is actually a neighborhood in the small town of Reesville, West Virginia. Reesville sits along the banks of the Monongahela River. Like many of its neighbors, the town spent its first 100 years or so as a quiet farming community. Then the coal boom hit. Soon after the immigrants came, the town was transformed. Even when I was a kid, people still yelled at their grandchildren in foreign languages. The old folks' yards were jammed with gardens. My great-grandmother's yard was famous in town for her well-manicured, productive vegetable plot. She grew an amazing quantity of produce on that small lot. A great percentage of the Italians in the Reesville area are Calabrese, meaning from the southern Italian province of Calabria. More specifically, many of the immigrants came from a town called San Giovanni and Fiore. So the connections between families go way, way back. That and the shared traditions create a bond. When the first immigrants arrived, they were worked hard in the mines and in the mills under terrible conditions for worse pay. But they were an industrious people. They prospered, and they brought a vibrant element into their communities. They loved America and pushed their children to speak only English. My grandfather refused to teach me Italian, other than several swear words I still use with alarming frequency. I didn't even know our dinner was called the Feast of the Seven Fishes until I was nearly 30, or that its Italian name was La Vigilia until I was older than that. My great-grandmother served the feast in the basement of her tiny house. I cannot believe how she managed to squeeze that many people into a small cinder block room. My grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, great-aunts and uncles, cousins, second cousins, assorted neighbors, fraternity brothers, girlfriends. As someone said in the strip, for most families, Christmas Eve is a quiet time. For us, it's a riot. How the hell did she get it all done in that cramped space? She would cook the meal over a wood stove. Working alone, or perhaps with one of my great aunts, she would produce mounds of whiting, smelt, and calamari. There were always oysters. Over the years, she simplified the meal. After a while, she no longer prepared eel or bacala, which we've added those things back in. And she made a soup, more of a broth composed of all the different seafood. I called it bread soup as a kid because we always threw hard bread into it when we ate it. In a room off to the side sat 2 oak casks that contained the Chianti that she made. It may be considered gauche to serve anything other than white wine with fish, but in that house it was what we would call Chianti. After my great-grandmother died, my grandfather carried on the meal at his house right up till he died in 2001. His name was Johnny Oliverio, and he was a character and a huge figure in my life. Nostalgia tends to warm up our memories. We edit out the difficult or painful parts and gravitate towards the good. My family had its share of trials like any other, and not every Christmas Eve was perfect. But to me, it seems like they were. Place after place, the book just kept finding its way. And one of my favorite stories was on December 23rd. Look, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't know what kind of Italians you got around here. We party, particularly at Christmas. We have a good time. December 23rd, we go visit each other. And that's a real good time. And my father-in-law calls me on December 23rd. He says, he's an Italian guy from Pittsburgh. He says, hey, what are you doing? I'm going down here to see this person, that person. We're gonna celebrate. He said, I don't think you better do that. He said, I just got called from the Pennsylvania Macaroni Company in the Strip District in Pittsburgh, which is a big Italian wholesaler. They just had a fist fight over the last copy of the book. They need more books. They were selling 90 a day. They were just flying off the shelves. I had, by accident, 5 copies of the book. So I threw it in my car, drove to Pittsburgh, walked in like the author. I mean, how glamorous a life is that? I walk in with my books. People are taking them out of the boxes. It was amazing. It was, it was a phenomenal thing. And it just sort of blew up from there, and it tends to sell really well there. But there have been so many magical moments with the book, and not least of which was when that following spring, when I had an email on a Sunday night, and it was nominated for the Eisner Award for the best graphic novel in the world. That's like getting an Oscar nomination. It's pretty good for a book about Italians cooking fish. We've assimilated so deeply in our town, you can't get a decent Italian meal. And I don't exaggerate. I mean, what they call the tremendous, there's a commercial for the one Italian restaurant there. I heard it the other day, and they go, this sauce, it's better than my mother's. You got to be an actor, because I got news for you. I've eaten in this place. I would change the oil in my car and eat it before I'd eat that sauce. It's dreadful. It's dreadful. But a businessman in town came to me, and he said, we think this would make a great festival for our town. It's a small town, 24,000 people. And they took a city block, and for one day in December, the second Saturday in December, they turn it into like Little Italy. They line it with vendors, and people sell calamari and smelt and whiting and baklava, whatever. And they just nonstop polkas, which where we are, at least polkas are Christmas carols. I don't know about around here. In our house, it always was. And it is amazing. 5,000 people in the street last year. Just having, the word fellowship is kind of, I don't know why I don't like that word, but it is fellowship. It is amazing. And emotional. And you'll see these old ladies, they grab your hand and they're kind of crying because they feel like something beautiful is being reborn. In their rush to be good Americans. I don't fish for compliments. I think I'm a perfectly fine writer. But there's something about this book that I almost feel like I don't do it. Like they all do it. All those people in those crowded ships and crowded kitchens. They do it in crowded coal mines. I mean, they're sort of on me with this book, and it just has a life of its own, and it does what it wants to do. And I just sort of follow it along. And what struck me were the number of Italian Americans, usually in my age range, usually in their 40s, who would come to me and start confessing their desperate need to reconnect, to reconstruct the best of what that was, and the most visceral way to do it is through the food. For that one 12-hour period on Christmas Eve, when we're cooking and we're doing things as close as I can to the way my grandfather did it, my great-grandmother did it, we're doing that, and that smell and everything hits you, we're painting. The food itself is folk art. There's a thin line between nostalgia, where it just makes you feel good, and looking back at what was good or what was bad and taking a snapshot of it. That Christmas Eve, my dad came and drugged me out of the college lunch Christmas party, where the college bar that I like to hang out. I was back in from California, and everybody was partying. I thought we were going to live forever. I was 22 years old. I didn't know the party ended. I didn't know she was going to die. I didn't know my grandmother was. I didn't know all these people were going to die. Truly, nobody had died. And I thought I had all the time in the world, and I totally took it for granted. Instead of being down there with a tape recorder and or you know, a pen and paper and writing down recipes, you know, I was chatting up yet another girl she would have thought was unworthy, and my dad came in and said, "You need to come be with your family." Does anyone remember when Roots came out? Do y'all remember Roots? Do you know what it was about? The way that Alex Haley made his way back on his family tree was, as a child in the 20s, on the porch of his grandmother's house. They knew one name and 2 words or 3 words that, in the end, those 3 words alone linguistically brought him back not only to his tribe but to his village in Africa. And that just struck me. And you know, if we just would reach out to our parents, our grandparents, or whatever, they have all these little bits that they don't even think they have that can unlock so many mysteries and connect us to so much wonderful history, you know.
Next on Italics, we'll take a look at the history and tradition of creating the family Preseppio, the nativity creche, which is a very popular activity among Italian-American families.
It's Christmas time, and all over America, people are preparing for the holiday. They're putting up their tree, setting out their lights, and they're doing their shopping. In Italian households here in the United States, the Presppio is the key to the Christmas season. The Presppio is not just the nativity scene, but an entire landscape that brings together the past, the present, and the future. The Presppio has its roots in the 10th century liturgical dramas, church plays that were put on to highlight biblical passages. In time, the Presppio included puppets and various types of statues. It really reached its height in Naples in the 17th and 18th century. And the Presppio, like other items, have come over to America with a big immigration at the turn of the century and also the immigration after World War II. Today, we have a special treat. We're in the house of Pasquale Di Meglio in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Pasquale, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for coming, and welcome to our home.
Thank you. This is an incredible Presppio. I've
you.
seen a number of them, and this is just so beautiful and so large. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, I'll be glad to, and it's lots of fun to tell you. The Preseppe is an imagination that each person can have his own imagination and build it. My imagination is, first you gotta have a beginning and an end. And my beginning is with a city. Can be New York City in your head, or can be Rome, any city. So we start with the train, bring the people around, then we go over overpass here, and we go to with the nation going into to see Jesus be born. Now that's a beautiful church. It can be in Rome or New York. This piece was given to me by my son to add in our Preseppe. All these houses have been given to me from every member of my family. Anything you see here, it's from a member of the family. Now as we go over here, that represents Italy. And at this part over here, still America, I'm sorry, we have Santa Claus coming from the mountain, and that's where he gets all this present that brings to everybody. Now over here we start Italy, we make believe, and we have Ischia and Capri. Capri will be underneath the Grata, the Grata Azzurra, and Ischia at the same place because they on the opposite each other. And over here we have a church that's called La Chiesa di Soccorso. It comes from our island, and it's very popular because they made even a movie behind. It's supposed to be the ocean, the movie Avanti. And as we go over here, these pieces that are around the waterfalls mean something. My father's making wine, which was the main product that he made in Italy. And my nephew and my father-in-law get along very good. Not that they get drunk, but they like to drink a glass of wine together. So my nephew is bringing wine to my father-in-law because he finished the wine. And my father is making sure that he's making enough to give it to them. And he even makes Santa Claus taste the wine. Now over here is my nonno from Italy. He was a shoemaker. I will still have him in the Preseppe because I used to love him. And over there in the corner is my brother Mike, that he likes to fish, so I make believe that's my brother fishing. Now we go towards here. We have a stream that comes from the mountain. And in order to go to the ocean, you have to go over the bridge, the little bridge that we have there. And all these pieces are made out of ceramic. I'm so happy because my mother-in-law gave it to me as a present. So she surprised me, and they're very nice pieces, and they meant a lot to me. Now, on the top, you see a nest with the quails that represent my family. Pasquale, Regina, Giovanni, Francesca. At this moment, we didn't have Rosaria, so we tried to get another quail, but we could not buy her anymore, so we made the nest, make believe that my wife was expecting Rosaria, which is in that corner. And we finally have Rosaria. It's the little bird over here, that means Rosaria. She's a little different than us because actually she looks a little bit more like me. She's a blonde, so it's okay that she does not look like Francesca and John. Now over here, the big angel gives order all the small angels to make sure that everything gets smooth. The United States and the firemen are looking over that everything is okay. Now we go back over here. Here it's another part of Italy to me, where I come from, and it's like going in the mountains. All the animals are coming down, and if you don't want to go in the mountains, you use the horse or the donkey, they take you up. And over here, we have finished it up with Mickey Mouse and Lion King, but I don't have the lion, so we made a Tiger Queen. The make-believe of the movie Lion King, finish it up over here. And the animals are all happy. The animals are all happy here that they see the water coming to their town again. And this is my imagination. Now each person can imagine the Presppio the way they like or the way they want.
Pasquale, how long does it take to put this Presppio together?
Okay, if I would work on steady, it would take about a day and a half with the help of my wife. She's the electrician. She puts all the lights up for us.
So you do it together as a team?
We do it right. I work on the landscaping part, and she works all the electric work. It's my wife, and she helped me do the train too.
Okay. How long have you been doing it?
23 years since we are married, and we started off with the small one, and we're going in the bigger and bigger every year.
I'd like, again, thank you so much for having us here today. It was a real treat to be here.
I hope I made you happy, and it was our pleasure to have you,
well,
all of you.
E buon Natale.
Grazie a voi, a tutta l'Italia, e Stati Uniti e tutto il mondo.
Perfetto.
Ciao.
Next on Italic News Briefs, we'll fill you in on some of the stories that have recently made news in our community.
Earlier this month, Italics went to the Astor Center in New York City's East Village for the book launch of Gastropolis, Food and New York City. To illustrate her chapter in the book, Annie Lanzalotto performed Frittata Agoraphobia with John Gennari.
My mother won't leave the house without a frittata. Do you know that? She carries a frittata wherever she goes.
Wherever she goes?
Wherever she goes. It's a condition. I think it's called, the doctor said, frittata agoraphobia. What do you do with your mother who has frittata agoraphobia? Frittata agoraphobia is when an Italian-American woman is scared or terrified, tremulo, to uscire de casa, to leave the house, senza la frittata, without a frittata. 13 years ago, I took her to the Met. We got famished, so we went out on Fifth Avenue looking for lunch. I put my hand at the sky for strolling clouds to answer. Where can an Italian girl find a lunch in the city she can admit to her ancestors? Is that too much to ask of New York City? We turned on Madison. We saw a sign. E-A-T.
Mangia.
E-A-T. Sounded humble enough, so we went in. Guess how much the price was for one sandwich?
Quanto?
$18.95.
Madonna.
And from that day, my mother vowed, take a frittata whenever you leave the house. Why is she so scared? Because if you leave, uscire di casa, senza la frittata, what are you gonna eat? You don't know. And the fear of not knowing what you're gonna eat gives you anxiety throughout the day. But I know my mother. You think she's just gonna look at the bus schedule and get out of the house? What is she gonna do? Before she opens up the bus schedule, she's gonna open up the great white refrigerator. She sees onion, asparagus. How many eggs? She takes them up. She beats as many eggs as she has. Why jazz? He's a professore de jazz. That's what he does. So he brought in the jazz music. Let's hear your beat.
And he can bring out the percussionist in everybody.
The big frying pan. On goes the gas. In goes the oil. She starts the onion.
Boom.
In goes the asparagus, mushrooms, because a frittata is whatever's in that bottom drawer of the refrigerator mixed in with eggs. She pours in the eggs and the cheese, and then she tilts it side to side. She gets a plate bigger than the pan, puts it over the pan, and flips the wet side of the frittata onto the plate, turns it over, slides the frittata back into the pan. Once it's cooled, she wraps it in a dish towel. She puts it into the pocketbook and runs for the bus because she knows somebody out there is waiting for la frittata!
We're at the Fashion Institute of Technology, New York, where the Circolo Italiano, the Italian club, is holding its third annual holiday concert benefiting Toys for Tots.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple try to stop.
The Marine Corps Reserves is every year we do, during the holiday season, we do Toys for Tots where stores, companies, organizations collect toys and they donate it to the Marine Corps and we sort them out, bring them to the precincts, and the kids who needy kids will get the toys.
Christmas tree, have a happy holiday. Everyone.
The school requires for a club to actually do community service. So we picked the Toys for the Tots Foundation. We get the Marines down each year. Since it's, the holiday season, give the kids something they wish for and give them an uplifting spirit also through the season.
If I wasn't even in the Italian club, I'd still want to participate in this event to help kids who are less fortunate. We collect a lot of toys. The U.S. Marines said this is one of their biggest donations. I just really love being a part of this.
Next on Italics, we take a sneak preview of the Tuscan Gardens in the Snug Harbor Cultural Center in Staten Island, which will open up officially in the spring.
The Snug Harbor Cultural Center and Botanical Garden in Staten Island celebrated this holiday season with a fundraiser for its highly anticipated Tuscan Garden. The Tuscan Garden, the second in a series of 6 internationally themed Gardens of the World, is almost complete and will be inaugurated in spring 2009.
Briefly, why Tuscan Garden?
Well, there are 2 master traditions in garden design. The Chinese garden is one of the very great master traditions which influenced most of the gardens in the East. The Mogul gardens and so on were all based on this. And then in terms of Western civilization, it was the gardens of Italy, the Renaissance gardens came first. And if you recall, it was after that, André Le Nôtre studied gardens in Italy and then went to France did Vaux-le-Vicomte and then Versailles. The same way Louis XIV imported all of the Venetian artists and artisans. When the Medicis, Catherine and Marie, came to France, they essentially brought Italian culture, which was the defining culture. And if you look at the formal gardens of the West, whether it's Blenheim or Schönberg or the gardens of France, they're all modeled on the Renaissance gardens of Italy. And the reason we picked this particular garden is we had a neoclassical building, which we call the Villa, which matched the footprint of Villa Gambaraia, and the area of the main terrace of Gambaraia was also the footprint of the garden we had. So we thought, what better garden to do than to take one of these more intimate gardens from Florence and to recreate it here. And as is the case with the Chinese garden, these gardens were also a place where you had music and poetry and wine tastings, and they were where the civilized people led a civilized life, and that's what we want to give to the people of New York City and the metropolitan region.
To be able to stand here tonight and announce to you that the Tuscan Garden will now be the center for Italian culture in New York City, I think it's pretty exciting. So
I think that having this garden and building P here at Snug Harbor is an incredible opportunity, not only to celebrate Italian heritage and culture, but the experience of the immigrants and all those who came to this country to make it so great. And certainly as we do this for the Italian Americans, it's so meaningful.
Actually, we're calling this a sneak preview. The garden's about 80% done, completed, and in the spring we're going to do the official ribbon cutting and we'll introduce our Tuscan Spring Fair, which the theme will be Scorpetta, or Discovery, and it will be on the theme of Galileo. So we're inviting you all to look forward to coming back in a few months when you can be outside in the garden, hear music and all kinds of performances.
And we can celebrate a Tuscan in Galileo.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, that's it for this issue of Italics. Thanks for watching. We want to wish you all a happy and healthy 2009. I'm Anthony Tamburi. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata. All'anno prossimo.
Rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. Mistletoe hung where you can see every couple